Even from the start with the Nexus line, Google has set its sights to be the de facto alternative to iOS. And now, more than ever, I think that is 100% true. With the Pixel 9 Pro and Pro XL, Google has finally created the de facto iPhone alternative. Why do I think that is? I'm Miggy the Tech Guy, and let's jump into it. I'd like to start off by saying that the Pixel series is the most expensive Pixel to date, with its starting prices of $999 and above. But you can actually find this device for much cheaper on Amazon. You can get a refurbished version of the Pixel 9 Pro and the Pro XL for much cheaper than it actually retails for. So on Amazon and eBay, you could definitely find it for a good deal in a refurbished market. I don't really recommend at this point buying it brand new or outright from Google, because you can find it much cheaper, and I guarantee you it's going to go down in price quite regularly as the months go on. So it may even be more of a go for people going into 2025 and further into the year. But for right now, as it is, yes, it's the most expensive. Yes, you get less storage than most counterparts nowadays, but on paper, all of these specs don't match any of these phones in the Android space, much less the iPhone. But this is one of the cleanest and most stable versions of Android I've ever used on a device, period. And I daily drive the OnePlus 12, which is fast, has a lot of different parts and different co-processors to make it smooth and quick and everything, and the Pixel feels every bit as fast as that device. So when it comes to an overall package, the Pixel 9 Pro and the Pro XL, even the 9 in most cases, you're just missing a camera and a little bit of RAM for the most part. The rest of the phone is the same exact experience. So if you can find those for cheaper deals and you want a smaller device, you can go with that. But overall, the Pixel experience is actually really great, and I could see myself dailying this device with no issue whatsoever. And that is pretty impressive, if I must say. It gives you an overall experience that the iPhone does give you for the most part on the Android side of things. So you are not getting all that in the kitchen sink in this device, but you are getting a very stable experience with a great set of cameras, an overall package that does, in my opinion, match the iPhone, and to boot, it matches in build quality. So we'll go into the first category of things on the device itself. So the build quality of the Pixel 9 Pro XL is arguably one of the greatest strengths that it has. It's got flat sides. With this model, the Pro XL and the Pro, they actually are a little bit more glossy than the Pixel 9 series, which is a little bit more matte. In my opinion, I think that design is a little bit better, and you do get a bit more pop and color for those devices. So if you like that, go with the Pixel 9. But if you want to have 16 gigs of RAM, the larger display, the Pro XL, is no slouch. You get an extra camera in the Pro and the Pro XL. So for the build quality, you're not really compromising even going down to the 9. So for the most part, it's beautiful. Let me tell you, it feels like an iPhone when you hold it. And most people I've seen on the internet definitely do say it rivals the iPhone in its build quality, and it does show. At first, when I saw the visor being more rounded off and not all the way around the device, I was like, oh no, they're losing their Pixel aesthetic and they're going more iPhone. But they definitely proved with this decision that it was the best decision they could make, because they actually have gone up in sales and definitely carved out a huge part of the market now. And that to me definitely impresses me. The build quality of the Pixel 9 series is beautiful. It feels great in the hand, very solid, very weighty. It feels premium through and through, and that shows through in flying colors. I think it actually feels better than my OnePlus 12 does in hand, and shows just how good of a device it truly is from the standout build alone. Like when people hold this, they're like, is that an iPhone? What kind of iPhone is that? So even most people are thinking it's an iPhone, and fine, that's great. And I know that they've probably put themselves in the zeitgeist with going with all these creators and just sending them phones and letting them review them themselves, and that whole debacle that in the beginning when these devices were released, a lot of these creators were trying to say that they weren't being paid or promoted, and I'm definitely a part of that. I did not get paid or be sent this device for free. I paid for this and I got this device on my own accord. So I am not sponsored in any way, shape, or form to talk about the Google Pixel 9 Pro XL, but it is an amazing device. In the build quality in general, You're not gonna be upset with how the buttons feel. They're very tactile, very clicky. The overall solid build of this device is wonderful. And I might add, this is my favorite color. This is the hazel color, and it's my favorite of the bunch for the Pro series. So if you're gonna go for one, I say pick this one up. It's really nice. Unless you like pink, or you like obsidian, you know, you like those different colors, that's fine. The white isn't bad either. So I do want to touch on the display. The Pixel 9 Pro XL has a 6.8-inch screen, which is flat edge to edge, nearly bezel-less aside from the camera cutout in most devices nowadays. And that for me is probably one of its greatest assets as well. In accordance with the build quality is that display, which you're going to spend most of your time on. And I like the XL for its large size. There's people who will prefer the more compact size of the Pro and the regular 9. So if you do like smaller devices, go with those ones. You're just going to be happier, and you're also going to be happier in your wallet as well. So those things definitely you should take into consideration. If you like large phones, Pro XL is the no-brainer, but if you like smaller phones, go with the other ones. Overall, the color reproduction of this display is amazing. Watching media and everything on this device is really cool. And even though it is a little bit annoying that it does give me HDR content in the TikTok app and it really puts it in your face and stuff like that, it's so beautiful and it's a really nice display. It's very sharp, accurate, like I said. It showcases everything through and through and is really a nice display for a smartphone at a high resolution, high refresh rate as everybody has, except for Apple in the regular series. But whatever, the rest of these devices, it definitely stands toe-to-toe, if not better in most use cases. I think it definitely holds up to the iPhone and shows through in flying colors that Pixel came to fight the big dogs with this display. It's beautiful, it's easy to use because it's flat, like they did with the Pixel 8 Pro. They made it flat. When they used to have curves and there was accidental touches, there's no accidental touches on this. You can use it with confidence even if you're not wearing a case on it. The display is super amazing and I absolutely love that for build quality purposes. For the most part, I definitely think that build quality wise, the Pixel 9 Pro XL holds up exceedingly well and beats most other devices aside from the iPhone and matches that device in general. So build quality is a major goal for this device, and I can see everybody who picks this device up wanting to continually hold this in their hand without a case on it, even though I did put a case on mine, and I recommend that you do that because you don't want to break this beautiful device and you don't want to drop it and mess it up and scratch it up and all that stuff. And some people are bold enough to do that. I'm not one of them, but for the most part, the build quality is a major goal for me with the Pixel 9 Pro, and it definitely matches the iPhone. Next, we're going to talk about software and stability on the Pixel series devices. When the Pixel 9 series came out, they had Android 14, which puzzled a lot of people, but arguably I think it was a great decision because it came out very, 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 very stable. There was no hiccups or issues or glitches or anything to mention, and that was the first time I actually had seen that with a Pixel device. I got the Pixel 8 Pro last year and I gave it to my son because it felt more like a premium mid-range device than it did a flagship, and we got it on a flash deal for $400 the second week it came out, so I had to pick it up. It was a no-brainer, and at that price it's wonderful. I think that's amazing, and you can even pick one up on Amazon right now for around that price. So if you're balling on a budget and you need to pick up a device, the Pixel 8 Pro is definitely a solid recommendation as well. But if you're looking at the flagship tier devices, while this device on paper does not hold up completely to any other device or the iPhone with its processor, the Tensor G4, it's very AI forward, and there's a lot of AI goodness built in and packed into this device, and that's where it truly shines. So the fact that it's not beating the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 or even getting anywhere close to A-series chips in the iPhones, it provides you with enough speed and fluidity to do any and every task that Android asks of you. So if you want to game, if you want to scroll the web, you want to watch content and all that stuff, the only place I've actually seen any lag of any sort was actually in the camera app. And that's because there's a lot of processing going on in there, and it zooming in and out is still kind of laggy. And when you are going to take the picture and then you go to open up the gallery, it does take a moment to process and give you the full image. Even when you're zooming, it pixelates a little bit for a second and then you can zoom in. So for the most part, there is a very tiny little hint that it's not the top tier, but for the rest of the device, it actually feels every bit as fast as anything else on the market, if not exceedingly well in most departments. So when we talk about the Pixel 9 series and its speed and fluidity and its software and everything that has to do with performance, the Pixel 9 series holds up tremendously well. I cannot overstate that. This is a great device to use day to day in every use case imaginable. And for me, that's really impressive considering the processor is more that of a Snapdragon 888 or an 8 Gen 1 in terms of most of what it can handle. So for a device that stacks up pretty much only against the S21 Ultra in terms of its specs, why does it feel better than that device? It's such a crazy thing to think about that, yes, it's comparable to that device there, but when you put it up against today's devices, it holds up just as well, and I think that is very interesting. And they did update it to Android 15 while I've had this device, and it's every bit as fast. Arguably, I think the battery life is slightly worse, but it's not terrible and it's not super noticeable, especially throughout the day. Unless you're doing extremely heavy use cases, I'll doubt that you even really see a difference. So for me, that's not really a deal breaker in any way, shape, or form, that Android 15 does drain a little bit more battery. There is a little bit more in there in the software to tinker with and whatnot. But the biggest star of the show, like I said, is AI for the Pixels. And it's not stopping here anytime soon. That's why they put 16 gigs of RAM in the Pixel 9 Pro and the Pro XL, because they wanted to give you every bit of RAM to put towards the AI features and run a lot of it on device. But if you're looking at that stuff, the extra little bits that you get with Gemini and Gemini Live in general, you get a free year of that. So if you want to, you can use Gemini Live for free with the Google One subscription that they give you for a year for free on the Pixels. I wish it was just unlimited forever, but of course that's not what they're gonna do. That's how they're gonna be making their bread and butter, is these AI features and everything that has to do with it. So of course that's what they're doing. But AI in general is the grand theme of this thing. You got yourself that new Add Me feature in the camera app, which allows you to add yourself into a photo if somebody else takes the photo and you want to add yourself into it. It's easy to do, it works, it shows you a guide to put yourself in there. It works great most of the time. There are a few hiccups here and there I've seen, but for the most part when I used it, it worked really well. And you also get, like I said, Gemini Live, and I'll show you guys a little bit of that here. What's a good recipe for chicken Alfredo on a budget?
Okay, there are several ways to make chicken Alfredo.
Actually, I think I want to spend a little bit more money. Give me a really nice chicken Alfredo recipe, please.
Okay, how about a recipe with homemade pasta and a richer sauce? For the pasta, all you'll need is some all-purpose flour, eggs, and a bit of salt. It takes a little more time than cooking dried pasta, but it's definitely worth the effort. The sauce for this recipe is super creamy. You'll start by making a roux with butter and flour, then slowly whisk in some warm chicken broth. Let it simmer for a bit to thicken up.
What if I'm allergic to chicken?
Oh, that makes things a little more complicated. Fresh pasta typically uses eggs, so you might want to try dried fettuccine or linguine instead. Also, a lot of Alfredo sauces call for egg yolks to thicken things up. We can easily make a delicious egg-free Alfredo sauce.
Could I maybe use oat milk?
Well, oatmeal would add a slightly different texture and flavor to your pasta.
No, oat milk.
Okay, I understand. How about some almond flour? You could make a roux with butter and almond flour, which would add a little nutty flavor to the sauce. Want me to give you the recipe?
Sure.
Okay, for the almond flour Alfredo, you'll want to start by making a roux. You'll need some butter and almond.
So as you can see, it actually does do a great job of speaking to you conversationally, and I think that is very impressive. It's something that stands apart from most devices, in my opinion, is that you can have a conversation with this thing and interrupt it and do a lot of stuff. So when it comes to AI in general, I know I've said it a million times at this point, it's definitely a step above a lot of the others. AI removal for background things and pictures, it's got a plethora of tools, and it even has an image playground for you to use. The Pixel Studio, you can go in there and you can create images from text. So that's really fun to play with. I had a lot of fun actually using that and making some pictures and whatnot. So all of the AI features that come with this device showcase what this device truly is capable of and how it really can work itself into your day-to-day use cases. That to me is impressive and shows me that they're trying to push the boundaries of what a smartphone does for you day to day. Right now, it may not be normal for you to speak to Gemini Live, but I think that they see in the future that that will be the case, and most people will just ask Gemini Live things and talk to it conversationally, and occasionally it might hallucinate because it's AI and we're still kind of in that weird stage where it's not quite at its peak, but for the most part, everybody's jumping on that bandwagon. Even OnePlus with their Oxygen OS 15 has thrown some AI stuff in there and really trying to compete. But for the most part, when you look at the Pixel 9, it definitely shows itself in flying colors with its AI, its performance. Everything to do with software and stability is just as good, like I said, with everything else. And to me, that's what it makes it the most iPhone-like, is that it feels almost as cohesive as the iPhone. And that's why I think if people are deciding to jump ship, they may be jumping to the Pixel series because it seems like the best transitionary phone. And if you want to go niche, you can go with something else. But a lot of people are choosing Samsung, of course, because the Ultra series is one that definitely entices a lot of people, but they've jumped their market share with the Pixel 9 series, and it's really impressive to me that a lot of people are now really seeing this device and being like, maybe I should choose Android instead of iOS. I think I've been there for too long. Let me try this out. There are still little deal breakers like iMessage and all that stuff. Even though RCS is included in iMessage now, they still don't want to transition from that. And AirDrop is another one where people don't want to move, and I understand that, but there are alternatives that people can use like Snapdrop, File Share. There's a bunch of different ones for Windows, so if you really need to, you have alternatives for all of those things. And like I said, iMessage and RCS are compatible now, so it's very similar. So if you are using that, you can still be in group chats, you can still react. Your bubble will be a different color, but at the end of the day, who really cares at this point? If you could do all the other things that iMessage does, you can send higher resolution videos and photos. So for everything encompassing that, that's why I think it's more iPhone-like than ever, and why I think it's their true answer to the iPhone, and the uptick in the market share really does show that. So for me, I think Google is going in the right direction and really push forward with this device, and I can't wait to see what they do with the Pixel 10 series, because if they did so well with the software package of this device and throwing everything into it, and yet still feeling very stockish Android and feeling very fluid and overall just a very stable Android experience that rivals iOS, I think that just speaks volumes in what they're trying to do and what they're trying to accomplish, and I think they really did it here. So for software and stability and performance, this phone is a huge go for most people. I don't really think there's a lot of people out there who could push this, and if you wanted a gaming phone, you'd go with something like that in the first place, and that's where it would showcase that it's not quite up to par, and it still plays most of the titles, if not all of them, right now as it stands. So you're not really going to be that upset about it. Yeah, it's going to get a little warmer, but they did add some type of cooling in here for that, so they've mitigated a lot of the issues that plagued the previous Pixel devices, where those ones showcase that they were more premium mid-tier. But here, it feels like a flagship, and that's why in software and stability, it is a major go, and why I think it's the true answer to the iPhone as well. Next, we're going to talk about cameras in depth, and I don't really want to talk a lot about it here in the beginning. The cameras are definitely a staple of the Pixel series and have been since its inception, so I'm going to shut up and I'm going to show you some photos here. As you can see, it does take a moment to process these photos, but when it does, I actually prefer a lot of the photos of my dog on the Pixel versus my OnePlus 12 that I daily drive, because my OnePlus 12 actually kind of darkens her fur a lot, and for me that was a little bit of a bummer. But with this one, it kind of enhances it and you can see her fur properly. It doesn't blow out the blacks, it doesn't overhype the highlights. So for me, it's definitely its strong suit is the cameras on this device, and it showcases really well here. This is what they've been forerunners in for a very, very long time, and although a lot of its competition have caught up, I think it still stands toe-to-toe with the iPhone and the Samsungs of the world and the OnePluses and all the other competition. The Pixel still holds its own with these cameras. And like I said, there's the Add Me feature in the camera for you to take pictures. You can remove things from the photos, like I said with the AI in the previous thing. So everything encompassed in this camera, aside from its lagginess from zooming in and out and the little bit of processing that occurs when you take a photo, those things aren't as much of a deal breaker as they were in the previous devices. And for me, I think it's something that everybody could get used to really quickly. And for me, I think that showcases very well here. So for the cameras, it's a no-brainer. Of course, it's a go, and why it definitely stacks up to all the other Androids and the iPhone as well. Next, we'll talk about the battery life and charging on the Pixel. And this is where I was a little bit disappointed because I am a bit spoiled with my OnePlus. I do have 80-watt fast charging and wireless charging, which can go up to 50 watts on their wireless charger from OnePlus. But the Pixel here is just giving you about 45 watts max for the Pro XL and the Pro. And I believe the Pixel 9 just does 35 watts or 37 watts, something like that. So you're getting much lower speeds in terms of your fast charging, and that's a real bummer for me, is that here in 2024 going into 2025, you're not seeing a huge increase from that, and a lot of devices aren't either. The Galaxies aren't doing it, iPhones aren't doing it, so of course they didn't. They're, trying to appeal to the masses, and I am of a very niche user base, so not everybody has the luxury of having 80-watt fast charging, and that is actually the primary reason why I use my OnePlus over the Pixel, aside from the IR blaster as well. Those are the two reasons why I still have to use my OnePlus 12, is the fast charging and the IR blaster. But for the most part, I was actually considering switching to the Pixel 9 Pro XL because everything else about it is awesome, and I love the experience as a whole. So when you talk about battery and charging, that's where it was a deal breaker for me. I can't switch to this, but if you are switching over from the iPhone or pretty much anybody else, you're not gonna really notice a difference there. And this is also a huge thing. The battery itself lasts all day, no problem. This is a sizable battery at just over 5,000 milliamp hours. So for the size of the battery, you're looking at a respectable size in the XL and a little bit smaller in the Pro and 9, but overall the battery life is going to be similar, and you're definitely going to be able to go all day. Light use, you probably even see 2 days. It did drain a little bit more, like I said, on Android 15, but that portion of it is respectable and definitely meets my OnePlus 12 in expectations. And if it weren't for the fast charging, I think that I would actually want to use this device, and I could use this device and swap it out for my OnePlus 12 and not be that upset about it. But I'm spoiled by the fast charging. I'm spoiled by the IR blaster, which I use all the time on my TV. So I can't live without those things for me personally, but for most people, you're not like me. So don't worry about that. You probably don't have a OnePlus 12 lying around, or even a OnePlus 11. If you are using those devices, chances are you're not going to want to switch over to the Pixel. And maybe you do, maybe you don't really care about that stuff as much as I do, but for the most part, I think that it is a respectable battery. It's okay charging, and it doesn't really upset me to recommend it to everybody. So for me, it's a little bit of a bummer, but it's still a major go because the battery life itself holds up really well against its competition, in my opinion, and you're not going to be upset that you went with this over anything else in the battery department. So yes, the battery is a go, and I think it goes toe-to-toe with the iPhone as well. I do want to touch on gaming on the Pixel 9 series. Yes, you can pretty much play everything on this thing. Don't worry about that. You can play high-end games like Fortnite. You can play your Temple Runs. You can play your Subway Surfers. You can play other little games if you want to, like Doodle Jump. So it plays everything. So don't worry about that. You can play Call of Duty Mobile. I wouldn't be upset if I had this device to game on. They have a cooling method in here now, so you don't really have to worry as much, like I said. Yes, it's gonna run a little bit hotter than most, and it might throttle after a while in larger games, but for the most part, I think people aren't gonna be that upset gaming on it. If you look at the package as a whole, gaming isn't as good as the other things on the list. It definitely kind of goes toe-to-toe with how I feel about the battery life. But for the most part, if you like to game and you're not a really heavy gamer, then you're gonna enjoy this experience and you're not gonna be upset about it. So when we're talking about gaming, it's a very short answer here, but for the most part, I think it holds up really well and definitely showcases it can stand toe-to-toe with its Android counterparts and the iPhone as well. So like I said, the gaming is a go. So all in all, the Pixel 9 series is an awesome set of devices. The Pixel 9 Pro XL I have here was a pleasure to use, and like I said, it's awesome for all of its categories. There's two little minor things that I saw that I didn't really like too much, but for the most part, I don't think you guys are gonna be worried about that experience. When you put everything together as a whole, this is truly the answer to the iPhone. This is the answer for most people who are switching over to Android. I think people should pick this up and use it before they transfer to anything else if they want to in the lineup. Yes, it gets the seal of approval from me, from Miggy the Tech Guy. That's the end of the video, folks. If you liked the video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you dislike this video, hit the dislike button. If you really like this video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to get more content from me. And as always, I'm Miggy the Tech Guy, and I am out. Peace.